What's up guys, I'm here with Shiki Kamiyo. Shiki just landed here in LA this morning. He came all the way from Japan and is visiting us just to train. Shiki is actually a former ASP remote athlete, and today we're gonna run through an assessment just to show you guys what our assessment process looks like. Quick little bio on Shiki. Shiki is a Kanagawa Prefecture high school record holder in the 50 butterfly with a time of 24.31. Did that in high school. He placed third at junior nationals in the 50 fly. He is a former national junior team member. He has best times of 54.3 in the 100 fly, and he's 201 in the 200 fly long course. And then he's also an athlete at Rikkyo University in Japan. So we'll run through the assessment. We usually start with a mobility assessment so we can kind of see what muscles to stretch, what muscles not to stretch. We'll do a movement assessment so we can kind of see what movements work best for Shiki. And then we'll do a performance assessment where we measure his vertical jump, we'll measure his broad jump, we'll measure his strength, and then all that information kind of helps us create a program that's specific for him. Shikiって怪我ある？肩右肩
両肩の前
だけ。あと膝と腰とかは
たまに肘が痛くなる。
両肩右肘はここの外それとも中の方。OK。62キロマイナス1キロ
1
で61として137ポンドぐらいか。Alright, so we're going to start off looking at supine shoulder flexion. Supine shoulder flexion is a passive variation of shoulder flexion. With this one, we're just looking for red flags. So what I'm looking for is a nice straight body line. And for athletes that are missing shoulder flexion in the supine position, oftentimes what you'll see is you'll see the elbow end up in this position. It's not very common. I would say out of all the athletes that we assess, maybe 5 to 10%, I see them here. Most of the time, 95% of the time, people can get into a nice supine shoulder flexion position, so that would be passing for supine shoulder flexion. Next one, we're going to check humeral internal rotation. So for humeral internal rotation, we're going to hold the elbow here. We're going to stabilize his scapula here so the scapula doesn't move. We're going to take him into a little bit of adduction here, and we're just going to see how much internal rotation he has. That's about, I would say, like 70 degrees-ish. And then we'll go to the other side. We'll go to external rotation. So for this, if that's 90, that's about maybe 120 degrees, something like that. 130, 120, 130. So, all right, we'll go to the right side. So on the right side, he's got a little bit less internal rotation. I would say that's about maybe 30 degrees internal rotation. So a little fun fact, I'm gonna try to guess which side he breathes to based on his internal rotation. Shikiってクロール泳ぐときは右に息してる？
右呼吸です。
右呼吸. Okay, so I guessed it right. So this there's not really any useful application for this, but I can generally guess which side an athlete breathes to based on side-to-side asymmetries and internal rotation. So on the left side, we had about 70 degrees internal rotation. On this side, Shiki has about 30 degrees internal rotation, and generally athletes breathe to the side where they have less internal rotation, and that's because whenever you breathe, the side that you're anchoring on, you need a little bit more internal rotation to be able to get into a good catch position. So because Shiki has more internal rotation on the left side, I can guess that he is probably going to breathe to his right. And then external rotation, we see about, that's like 110 degrees, something like that. この左の内線が70度ぐらいで、外線が120度ぐらいで、両方足しちゃうと190度ぐらい、で右の内線が30 degrees 30度ぐらいで、外線が was about 110 degrees, so こっちが140度ぐらいで、肩の痛いのってこことここがちょっと違うとなんか問題があるんだよね。でもどうしたらこれをもっと近くできるかというと、 IR はちょっと上げるのちょっと危ないっていうか、It's a little bit controversial。でも俺はあまりこれをもっと上げるのは好きじゃない。でもこの外線、右の外線を例えばこの120度までにとかすると、これが150度になるでしょ。でそうしたらもっと肩の痛みとか、もしかしたら少なくできるかも。まあ 100% できるとは分かんないけど、もしかしたらこの右の外線をもっと強くすれば、もしかしたらもっと肩の痛みが少なくなる確率がある。So Shiki mentioned that his left shoulder generally hurts more than his right shoulder. So left shoulder, his total range of motion is about 190 degrees. His total range of motion on the right shoulder is about 140 degrees. So this is just my hypothesis. I would probably refer out to a physical therapist about this. But my hypothesis is that he's a little bit more lax in the left shoulder. So he just might need to get stronger and do a little bit more stability training on his left shoulder and actually not increase his range of motion on his left shoulder. So I would probably try to strengthen his right external rotation so we can get this number up and get this number closer, and then just kind of stabilize the left shoulder a little bit more. Again, that's my best guess. I don't know. At least that gives us something to work towards and be directionally correct. I will check hip internal rotation next. For this one, I usually check for breaststrokers and water polo athletes, but Shiki's got pretty good internal rotation. It looks like he has about 45, 50 degrees of hip IR. And then we'll check Faber. He's pretty good Faber test too. So hip mobility is actually really good. 平泳ぎとか上手？
一番苦手です。
平泳ぎのキックとか？
キックだけだったら。キックだけは
OK。
OK。
Yeah, he's got about 45 degrees of hip internal rotation right there. Sometimes with athletes, if they're missing hip IR, I can literally only move them like this much. But Shiki's pretty good. Check Faber on the other side. Yeah, that's a really good Faber. Yeah. 右足を上に上げてもらえますか？膝をまっすぐにして、できるだけ上に上げて。もうちょっと。はい、OK。で、反対。So for this one, we want to see the femur get to at least 90 degrees, which, yeah, Shiki does a pretty good job of. So sometimes we'll see athletes, they kick up and then they get stuck about right here. Generally what that tells me is either the hamstring is super tight or the hip flexor is really weak. And if I do see this, I'll usually resort to training the hip flexor with a straight knee. 膝と足をくっつけてもらう。で、ここをこう持って両肩に当たるようにして、で膝と足を動かさず、でここで上半身を回してストップ。はい、反対。Generally, you want to see like 70 degrees. That's actually pretty good. Maybe that's like 50, 60 degrees. On the left side, he has about 50, 60 degrees. Generally, I kind of want to see about greater than 70 degrees. So we'll probably work on T-spine. It's not terrible. It's something that we should definitely kind of look at. The other thing is sometimes you'll see asymmetry in athletes. So they might have one side that goes to like 20 degrees and then the other side, they can get like 70 degrees. If that's the case, we also try to address that and attack T-spine mobility too. 腕をでもうちょっとこんな感じ。これどんな感じですか？大丈夫ですか？
大丈夫。
So this would be a passing shoulder flexion. With shoulder flexion, we kind of want to see the lower back nice and flat. A failing shoulder flexion would be where この腰上げてもらえますか？ So if he was like this, if he had to get into this position in order to get the arms overhead, this would be failing, but Shiki does a good job of keeping his ribs down, smashing the lower back into the wall, and his arms can get overhead, so he has no problems with shoulder flexion here. All right, we're gonna move on to the movement portion. I'm just gonna have Shiki go 5 push-ups. And basically what I'm looking for is, can he control his core while he's doing push-ups? And I kind of want to also see his scapular mechanics while he's doing push-ups. So yeah, good core control. Humerus and torso create a 45-degree angle. Awesome. So that would be pass. So we're gonna go inverted rows next. Just want to see his general upper body strength and just to see how the scapula is moving. So right now I can kind of see that his scap goes a little bit into anterior toe at the end and then doesn't quite get retraction all the way. It's not bad, but you can kind of see when he finishes the movement, his scap, it's not terrible, but it just goes a little bit into scap anterior toe and then he doesn't quite get full retraction. So if we were to work with him, what we would work on first is the ability to fully retract the scapula and fully protract before we start going crazy with this variation. Pretty good. Shiki squat's pretty good. I'm just looking for red flags. There's a little bit of a butt wink. I think his knee can go over his toe a little bit more, but usually that issue we can solve immediately if we put a little bit of load, so I'm not too worried about that. All right, and then the last one I'm gonna have Shiki do is a hip hinge. This is just a prerequisite before we prescribe any deadlift variation. So I usually have athletes go here. They make 2 points of contact, one behind the head, the other one on the tailbone. From here, athletes go slight knee bend, push the hips back, hips forward, hips back, hips forward without losing the 2 points of contact. And what we're kind of looking for is a straight shin here. And then if you imagine there's like a red dot on the pelvis right here, we want to see that red dot go back and then forth while maintaining that neutral spine, which Shiki does a pretty good job of. I'd like to see the hips move back a little bit more, but that's something we can coach when we're doing the actual deadlift. And このお尻がさ、後ろに行くとき、体重がちょっとかかとの方に行く感じでも大丈夫。
大丈夫。
だからこのつま先がさ、こうちょっと上がってもいいって感じ。これをやるときは。そうそうそうそう。そうするともっとお尻が後ろに行けるようになる。こうするとデッドリフトとかするときに腰の負担が少なくなる。こんな感じで腕をここから始めてできるだけ外まで行って。So I usually use this variation to just kind of see how the athlete moves their humerus in external rotation. And this kind of helps me determine whether we should start an athlete with the manual sideline external rotation, which is our entry-level rotator cuff exercise, or if we can go straight to the cable. It just helps me determine which step of the progression I should place them in. So I'm gonna have Shiki go about 8 reps here. And what I'm looking for is the torso to be completely still. And I usually ask the athlete where they feel this exercise. So they can either feel it here, here, or in the rotator cuff where we want them to feel it. これやってるとどこの筋肉が感じる？
肩と肩甲骨。
こことここどっちがもっと感じる？
今はこっちの方が強いです。
So Shiki's telling us that he feels more of the deltoid activating. So if we can feel the deltoid activating, that means he has a little bit of abduction going on, where he's trying to do this with his arm in order to get rotation. What we want is for the delt to be completely off and for the rotator cuff to do all the work. So we kind of want him to squeeze down a little bit. もうちょっとこの肘をこうつけて、ここだけをつけるようにしてみてもらっていいですか？こうするとこっちの方がもっとこっち。So for Shiki, it's just a matter of coaching. We can actually get him to turn on his rotator cuff just by him thinking about squeezing his elbows to his side. All right, so I use the ab wheel to kind of give me a general understanding of the athlete's core strength. For core training in general, in our training system, I like everything to have a goal or a purpose that we're working towards. So for example, we don't really program like four sets of 25 sit-ups because it's like, what are we working towards? The ab wheel, full standing ab wheel gives us, so the full standing ab wheel would be standing on the feet, rolling out all the way out, and then rolling back in. That movement is very difficult to achieve for a lot of people, but it gives us an end goal that we can work towards, and we have a progression system that we can work towards. So we use the ab wheel, and then we use the front lever kind of as our gold standard of ab training, and then we regress everything to make sure we can hit that. So everything is on a continuum, and right now with the ab wheel, I'm just determining where he is on that continuum, and then we work towards that full standing ab wheel. So I'm gonna have Shiki here. Whenever I test the ab wheel, I have everyone round their back like a cat, and I want their pelvis to be in complete end range posterior pelvic tilt. So Shiki's doing a good job of that, and then he's gonna roll out as far as he can. I'm watching what his lumbar spine, his lower back, and his pelvis is doing. Good. Shiki, もうちょっとできるだけ行ってもらえますか?
Okay.
So he's going as far as he can. Yeah, Shiki does a really good job of maintaining end range posterior pelvic tilt. And then there's also no movement in the lumbar spine as he does it. So Shiki feels it mostly in his core. So I would call that a pass. And then we can kind of give him more advanced variations of the ab wheel because we determined that he could do it. Failed ab wheel, the athlete, when they go out, they would either flop or you would see, so a failed ab wheel, the athlete would have lordotic curvature in their lumbar spine. So if they do that, then we wouldn't quite start them with this ab wheel variation yet. Or when they do it, if they feel it in their lower back, we'll avoid it until we can build the strength necessary to be able to hold that position. We're gonna test his non-counter movement jump. We test non-counter movement jumps for all of our athletes because in an aquatic environment, you actually don't have a counter movement. A counter movement is whenever you go down and up really fast, that's a counter movement. Basically, your muscles stretch and then helps it fire. We don't have that in an aquatic environment, so I'm gonna have him do a non-counter movement jump. I'm just gonna say, take your mark. He's gonna squat down, pause, and then jump as high as you can. We're gonna do a 3-rep average. Take your mark. Go. 19.9. Take your mark. Go. 18.9. Take your mark. Go. 18.6. 19.1 inches. 48.5.
弱い。こう来て。
Yeah, we should note that he literally just landed in LAX this morning, flew in from Tokyo this morning, so he might be a little bit jet lagged. So don't judge him for his vertical jump. The man goes 201 in the 2 fly. 93 inches.
Oh.
I think that was 94. 94 again. Ooh. Swimming is a sport where you have to carry your own body weight through the water. So strength to body weight ratio matters a lot. It's a little bit of a controversial topic, but every athlete has an ideal body weight they should race at. You actually want to find what your ideal body weight or racing body weight is. What we're doing right now is we're testing his strength to body weight ratio. The formula we use to calculate strength to body weight ratio is Shiki's body weight plus whatever weight he can pull, all divided by his body weight. And ideally, aquatic males, we want to see about greater than 1.4. Elite males we see are usually around 1.4 to 1.7, somewhere in there. And from my experience, every time I've helped an athlete who couldn't do a pull-up get their first pull-up, or if I take an athlete from 1.1 to 1.4, I've seen almost every time people can improve their best times. 44ポンド、20キロぐらい。
20キロぐらい。
ガンバ。
よっしゃ。
おっす。Go. いけいけいけいけいけ。おっす。Max.
Max.
Okay.
Max.
Jet lag PR. If we do 49 plus his body weight, which is 137, divided by 137, 1.35. That's pretty good. 1.35.
1.35。
Yeah. でも多分時差ボケしてなければ多分 1.4 とかいけてたかも。多分もうちょっといけてたかもしれない。Alright, so that's it for the assessment today. This information will kind of help us continue his remote training program. This is kind of how our program works. We kind of take every individual through an initial assessment, and it helps us create a program that's specific for each individual. If you guys like the video, go ahead and like and subscribe.